Now, President Donald Trump is set to make English the official language of the United States, according to a White House document. This document says it is long past time English is recognized as the official language of the United States because, and I quote, a common language fosters national cohesion. Now, you may have thought English already was, but no. And the order overturns a presidential mandate from the 1990s, which requires federal agencies receiving federal funding, to provide assistance to non-English speakers. According to the new document, agencies will still have flexibility to decide how much help to offer in languages other than English. So I suppose one of the big questions is, how could this affect America's very large Spanish-speaking population? Let's speak to Javier Palomarez, who's the president and CEO of the United States Hispanic Business Council. Joins us now. Javier, thank you so much for being with us here on Business Matters. You have a number of members, I imagine, who would use Spanish as their normal everyday means of communication with everybody, including, I guess, with officials. Do you fear that that might now be problematic?
Thank you for having me, first of all, Roger. And, I think, well, first of all, to kind of level set, the United States Hispanic Business Council is the leading advocate for America's Hispanic business community. There are about 4.5 million Hispanic-owned firms in this country that collectively contribute north of $850 billion to the American economy.
And they would normally use Spanish in their everyday work, wouldn't they?
Not the majority of them, but certainly Spanish would be part of the everyday, interaction. And frankly, I think that Trump declaring English as the official language of the U.S. is more symbolic than anything else. We aren't the first country, by the way, or state in this nation to name an official language. If you look at your side of the pond, other countries in the EU have declared an official language. I think Italy, France, Spain, Greece, and even in our own country, Roger, 30 states, maybe 32, have already named English as the official language. And even our most culturally diverse states have named English as the official language. You think about states like Arizona and Florida and California, where frankly the Hispanic community is the dominant ethnicity in California.
Yes. So does it then feel a bit discriminatory then? Because you would then be expected, as I understand the way it works, that perhaps ballots, forms, all kinds of things would be in English pretty much inevitably, and people who don't necessarily have it as their first language might be disadvantaged.
Well, I mean, I think what will happen is ultimately the states will make the decision what works for them. I mean, again, if you think of the states I just mentioned, Arizona, Florida, California, look at the industries that drive those states: agriculture, construction, manufacturing, hospitality, and even STEM technology. In agriculture, 80% of the American workforce in agriculture is of immigrant background. In construction, 60% of the construction workers are of immigrant backgrounds. In manufacturing, 25%. In hospitality, 30%. So at the end of the day, the state and the business and the industry will make the decision that's right for them. Again, I think there's a lot of symbolism here, but will it change the day-to-day interaction in the industries that drive the economies, not only on a national level, but certainly at the state level? I don't believe it will.
So you don't mind? It doesn't matter as far as you're concerned? It isn't? You don't see it as a problem?
I think it's a bit, Roger, I think it's a bit of showmanship. In every case of the states that I just mentioned where they made English the official language, the immigrant community has actually grown since the announcement of English being the official language in that state. And the reality of it is, as a nation, we will come together. I remain hopeful that we will begin to see what is important, what matters, what doesn't, what is thrown against the wall to see if it'll stick, what is showmanship, and what truly matters.
Well, what could matter, I guess, Javier, is if, for example, most or all of government communication and paperwork in Spanish would be eliminated. I mean, that would make some hurdles, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that is the concern I do have. I think the critical piece of this is that we do not allow this to become a stepping stone for the erosion of critical resources and critical pieces of communication that are necessary in our society. Think about less people now if you begin to interact and communicate only in English, less people will know how to file taxes, less people will know how to show up for jury duty, less people will know about their consumer or employee rights, and the list goes on.
Yeah, but I
So my
suppose
sense,
the counter argument, just to put the counter argument there, which I can imagine being put, is say, well, hang on. You're in the United States. English is the majority language. It's the historic language of the country. You're an American citizen, probably, and you need to have that language. It's up to you to learn English enough to be able to cope.
and I agree with that, and I don't think anybody is disputing whether we should, loudly proclaim that this is the official language, but in the everyday interaction and what happens in the real world, the economy needs to move forward. The agricultural sector needs to move forward. The construction sector needs to move forward. That's what drives the American economy. And businesses and industries will make the decision relative to what's actually going on in the market to get things done. And the reality of it is, I think while the symbolism will certainly exist, I don't think there will be that big a change when it comes to the practical
Well,
application
but
of
but
language.
but Javier, if this order comes down from Washington, this must happen in terms at least of interaction with the federal government. It might
Yes.
well be that they decide, right, nothing is going to be written in Spanish anymore.
And that does concern me. And again, to the point I made earlier, that will impact the American economy. It will impact the American population. And I also happen to think that um, it's not necessarily the best political move that a Republican president could make. If you think about it, if you think about this, one thing is clear: Trump's presidency is the result of the Hispanic vote.
Hmm.
And he should really be careful not to alienate the very people that put him in the Oval Office. According to an NBC poll, some 46% of Hispanics voted for Donald Trump. That's never happened in our nation. And 55% of Hispanic men voted for Donald Trump. That set a record. That was an 18% jump from the last president that had the Hispanic male vote. So the reality of it is he wouldn't be in that office were it not for the Hispanic
Yeah.
vote. And moves like this have the ability, have the potential of alienating the very people that put you in the office.
Javier, thank you so much for being with us. Really appreciate your time. That's Javier Palomarez, who's President and CEO of the United States Hispanic Business Council.